Soda. My man G Witt, Mr. J. Lou,
Tighten
what's
up,
going on,
baby.
gentlemen?
Tighten up, baby.
What's happening?
Enough, guys, but we are here. Another episode of Halftime Adjustment, man, breaking down the schedule review. Good to have G Witt back, man. He was across the pond there for a few weeks. Welcome back, G. How was your vacation, man?
Yeah, and it was fantastic. And the funny thing about it, we did a tour of Windsor Castle, and of course, I had my Titan jersey on and walking past some people, and all of a sudden I hear, "Tighten up, baby." I'm like, "Well, tighten up." That's right.
That's right.
So, I will say this: there are a lot of people looking forward to the game from the Titans in October, so that's going to be interesting. And matter of fact, I got to send some Derrick Henry clips to this one guy we talked to that we met because he's never been to an NFL game, so he's want to know, do the Titans have any proper players? I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely."
Proper players.
Yeah, that's what they calling it over there. You know, you be good, you're proper.
Gotcha. And so, last week, me and J. Lou broke down that first quarter, and J. Lou said, at least 2-2, and we both agreed on that, and looked at those first four games, man, and tough coming out the gate, right? Tough coming out the gate, and this quarter is it's really going to be tough as well. And so, coming into these last week though, you had a we keep hearing about this up tempo offense, right, guys? This up tempo speed that the team is playing with. J. Lou, man, what does that sound? I mean, I know for you it sounds great because now we're probably getting the single back runs, like you mentioned, the shotgun runs, man. But just give me a little elaboration on your thoughts about this new up tempo offense that the Titans are installing.
I think, and it's still early in the off season because I might change my mind 2 or 3 times between now and the season.
Right.
But I think, health pending, because we always got to say that, you might see a resurgence of Tannehill. And people might think I'm crazy, but let's just go back to 19, 18, 20 when we had Arthur Smith, and we even saw it sometimes when Todd was actually thinking about calling plays. Anytime we ran the 2-minute offense or up tempo, we've all said on every show we've done, that's when the Titans and Tannehill are at their best. Mm-hmm. The one thing I like about the up tempo, and if you listen to what Tannehill has said, and I think back to the shows we did over the last 2 years with Todd in charge, particularly G Witt, because I think it's something G Witt brought up from when he was running the show in with the Raiders. Todd's offense is, I'm gonna call a play. You've got to run it regardless if I think it's going to work or not. Right. And one of the things that you've heard Tannehill and like Burks and some other players say in these last couple of weeks of OTAs is the amount of freedom that they have in the play calling and the ability to change it. And you can do a lot of that with tempo. And again, tempo doesn't necessarily mean hurry up. I think what you're going to see more of is we get back to the line in 40 seconds and still don't hike the ball till 10 because we're calling plays. We're doing a huddle at the line. And the good thing about that is, the defense can't substitute. If you keep everybody on the field, right, you catch them. Aaron Rodgers was the best at that, catching them with 12, 13 men on because they get tired. So I'm interested to see what that can bring to this offense, especially the best thing I think I like about up-tempo, and y'all might agree with me. When I heard that, the first thing I thought was, yes, we don't have to do a lot of formations because you can't keep changing people out if you're going up tempo. So I'm interested to really get started to get to see this as we get more into the summer.
Yeah, absolutely, man, and I agree with you because basically, I think it goes back to one thing that Vrabel said at the end of last season when everything was done. He said, about us consistently being the slowest team on the field. And right, that's not always necessarily mean that your players are always slow, but we were slow in directing.
Uh-oh. Lost G Witt.
G Witt on that. He on that England time.
There you go. He's back.
That's weird. But, once again, but no, again, I think it just meant more that he was talking about the way they ran the plays and everything because we were constantly pressing against the game clock. And I think seeing that come out in these OTAs, I think that's going to be a big plus for the offense. And the fact that they keep it moving quickly. And like you said, J. Lou, we found that especially with he that shall not be named was calling plays that whenever they went to when they had to go to 2-minute offense or when they rarely went, we saw that they rarely went up tempo.
Yeah.
But when they did go up tempo, you saw the offense really starting to click. But I think that's adherent upon the guy who was calling the plays. He didn't like doing that, so I think we're going to see this pan out a lot better, and I think we'll see the players get into a better flow of the game, which is one of the things that drove us crazy these past 2 seasons. You just could not get into a good flow of the game offensively at all.
Right. And so, man, appreciate y'all joining. Like Travis White, man, appreciate you joining. Will says the trio is back. Yes, Downey was playing. I can't see the rest of it because it's covered up by the logo. But
hey,
anyway,
it's like
thank y'all for
J.G. Whitworth, man. I want it's my play, and I want to run it down.
right. Thank y'all for joining us tonight, man. So yeah, but G Whit, man, still no KB in the OTAs. Is that a concern at this point?
I don't think so, in all honesty, but we'll see. I think again they got minicamp this week, so he'll be there. So you'll hear those answers after that. But I think a lot of it may have to do with the fact that they're trying to work out as far as the contract and all that kind of stuff is concerned. I think that's probably playing a little bit into it. J. Lou would be better qualified to answer that question than I would, but I think that plays a little bit into it. So. But I'm pretty sure he'll be there for the mandatory minicamp this week, and we'll hear the political reasons why he wasn't there, and have to read between the lines.
So Jayla, you know what I'm about to ask you, right? You know where I'm finna go with this. So the big three. Still not convinced that all of them gonna be on the 2023 roster, are you?
No, I'm not. I put it this way, I don't even care if KB shows up. I'm not convinced. If I had to do my ratings again, I would probably say KB, Henry, and I think Tannehill has the best chance of being on the team out of the other two. Unless Malik and Will come out and just make it a whirlwind over the next 2-3 months before the season starts, I think Tannehill is solidified to at least be his first choice. I will tell you this. I could see all three staying on the team for the simple fact is you haven't seen an extension happen for anybody yet. And if an extension happens for at least Tannehill or Henry, then we bring up that dreaded word of dead cap again if you look to release them next year. Because right now, both of them still have some void years left on the contract. I do think that Byard is, like G Wood said, I think we'll hit the politicals. I mean, he's been working out, and Vrabel's comments about him sound a lot different than they did about Kristen Fulton. So yes. I think that's one where they've been talking about collaboration. If I had to guess, I would think that Vrabel will win that battle when it comes to KB staying on the team or letting him go. So I'm like G Witt. I think you see him Tuesday, Wednesday. Minicamp starts one day this week, with mandatory at that. And he's got to show up because with the new CBA they put in a couple years ago, the team can't rescind the fines now. So it used to be they could find you these ungodly amounts of money, then just take them back once you showed up in good faith. But now they can't take those back. So I would expect to see every single Titan this under contract here next week. And the good thing that one to keep your eye on, I think by July, by the time training camp rolls around, you either see Tierre Tart with a new contract or he signs the tender. He did a good faith the past 2 weeks in OTAs by signing an injury waiver and still showing up while they're working the deal out behind the scenes. So I think you might see him get one before July.
Yeah. And to go along with that, as far as KB is concerned, really one of the things I think they look at why I don't think you see Vrabel concerned or anything like that, is because they're still running the same defense. And KB has pretty much played communication-wise and everything. He's good with all of that. So I think the biggest concern is the fact that you have a new DB coach, and we're going to see how that's going to work out. But other than that, like I said, I think he'll be there this week, and I think you'll hear all the political answers. And I'm of the mindset, in all honesty, going back to what you said, J. Lou, I'm of the mindset still that all three of them are going to be on the team for the season and everything. And I don't see an extension happening with any of them. I don't see it right now at all.
The wild card play out there is Hopkins and everybody. That's the big name receiver. And they still. the Titans have left themselves some flexibility if they wanted to go add another contract like that. But and again, I think we see that come July as we get closer to that to it rolling around. But yeah, G Wit, I'm leaning more towards all three being on. If one was gone, I think it'd be KB first, then the King.
So a lot to still be worked out, man. But great commentary, both of you. So, and here's some other names, guys, who've been hearing. There's a lot about Chig and Burks. Burks looking like he could be the number one that they were potentially hoping he would be. And hearing a little bit about Kyle Phillips, he didn't put on some size, and so you got some things coming about some of these younger guys, man. And it all goes back to what we talked about last year a lot with Todd Downer. Was he using the pieces correctly that he had? and so. Tim Kelly, he's made his mark in the league with Davis Mills. We all know that, and so now he's got some more weapons, if you will, with this offense. Still, we was yet to see what we have in these young guys in the receiver room. Some of these undrafted free agents, there could be some diamonds in the rough. We got Dial out of UT Martin, could be another steal of the draft, unknown, under the radar type of player. But we'll see, guys. We'll see what happens, and so. Let's roll on to the second quarter of the schedule because, they talk about the schedule being kind of easy this year, but I don't see any cakewalks as far as this year's go. And so you got a noon kickoff at Indianapolis that finished 4-12 last year. We all know what they did with their first pick. They brought in a franchise quarterback, if you will, Anthony Richardson. Offensively, they were 27th overall, only averaged 17 points a game. Had a lot of issues at quarterback. We all know that. Lost Frank Wright because he couldn't win the game. He would stop running Jonathan Taylor. Basically, what happened?
That's
right?
the problem.
Jay Lou. And so had a defense though that was pretty solid. 15th overall, giving them 334 yards a game and 25 points a game, and top 10 in sacks. And so the defense is going to be on par. Gus Bradley is leading that side of the ball. G Witt. And you look at some of the free agent additions they added. They added Samson Obakam from defensive end from 49ers. And so G Witt, division game. We've been getting the best of the Colts in the past few seasons. And Irk say it's all he want to do is beat the Titans.
Yeah. And I would tell you this, and the wild card in all of this, really, in all honesty, it's obvious. It's Anthony Richardson, man. You just don't know what you're going to get from him now. All you're hearing out of the camp is good news. Mm-hmm. He's great. He's fantastic. He's further along than people thought he would be, or whatever the case may be. But I always look at it from this standpoint. When you're dealing with rookies in camps and everything, they always look good. But when you get into the real action, when teams start game planning for you, they start mixing up defensive coverages and everything, that turns into something a little bit different. Now, I will say this about him. The key for him is going to be his improvisation. He's going to improvise a lot. Play breakdown, he's going to take off running. So for us, that's going to be a key issue, being able to contain him as far as the running quarterback is concerned. That's always been a problem sometimes with the defense. So that's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game because, again, we don't know what we're going to have. They're used to us. They're used to D. Henry. So, they figuring that they could probably at least manage him, but they don't know what else we're going to have going on. And remember, that was the game last year where Burks had suffered the turf toe. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how this receiving core adjusts and whether this offense is going to be much better. I think defensively we may be fine. Again, we did struggle with running quarterbacks. I mean, Kyler Murray gave us the blues quite a few times. So we're going to see with Anthony Richardson what's going to happen. But containment on him is going to be the biggest issue, I feel, as far as that's concerned. It's going to be tight. I think we'll still win it, but it's going to be a much tighter game than what we've seen in the past few years.
Yeah, and J. Lou, they get a new head coach this year, Shane Steichen. He was the OC for the Eagles, and so you already know what he's bringing in. He worked with Jalen Hurts last season, and so he brings in that same type of offense for Anthony Richardson, which has got the same similar tools as Hurts, right? Mm-hmm. And so not only that, but you got Jonathan Taylor still in the backfield. They added Isaiah McKenzie to that offense, and so they got a slot receiver that can run and got a lot of speed, and so. It's gonna be a challenge. Like G Wiz said, mobile quarterbacks give the Titans problems, but the defensive side of the ball though is gonna be well prepared for that coming.
So that's where I was for to go. You name the receivers and the slot receiver they added. We know they got the weapon in the running back or whatnot. They didn't add their offensive line. And that offensive line was not as good as the Colts have had in the past. Yeah, Matt Ryan was Matt Ryan, but he also was a sitting duck back there because that offensive line gave up a lot of pressure. I vaguely remember Big Jeff handling Quentin Nelson 2 games last year. So I think that's and so G Witt brought up a good point. Rookie quarterbacks usually give us the blues, especially running ones. At least I think this is game 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So you got a month worth of tape that you'll have out there on them, and they'll still continue to try to. That the key will be how much they continue to try to feed him as a rookie quarterback to change up the offense. Because again, we know you'll have the simple reads, etc. Because it's the speed of the game is not the same as it was at the University of Florida. So curious to see that. I think our defense. You're right about our offense. That's the wild card. They're gonna stack up to stop the king. I just feel like Derrick Henry has had his way with them, even with the injury. And again, that's I'm hoping that this game this year we can go up to that turf and not have anybody hurt on the turf up there. Because to G Witt's point, we had the King get hurt 2 years ago, and then Traylon got the turf toe last year while we were up there in Indy. But again, division game. That they have this one. This game was probably brought up in the interview process from Irsay to all the people he interviewed. You got to. He don't care if they lose the first 4. You better not lose number 5 to the Titans.
Right.
But it'd be a tough divisional game. I think this is our first division game of the season. So go ahead and you want to stack up the wins there and stack up the wins. But I agree with G Witt. It should be a close game. But this is one of those games where I feel like we might start to see our offense start to gel a little bit because we got brand new everything on offense. But this is one of them games where I think you lean on your defense and the experience there to help you get a tough win on the road.
Yeah, and so as we move on though, like I say, Anthony Richardson, they brought in a defensive back, Julius Brents from K-State, 6'3", 198, runs a 4.5. And he's a guy that Gus Bradley likes. Now, if you remember Gus Bradley from the Seattle Seahawks days when they had the Legion of Boom, they ran a lot of cover 4, right? And you got a guy that's big, that can run and play, and he's known as his own cover corner. And so that defense is going to be right. And then they added Josh Downs, another weapon on offense from the North Carolina wide receiver, 4.4 and the 40. A little smallish, 5'9", 171, but he returns kicks. He does a lot of the things like that. A real gadget knife for this offense, if you will. And then G Witt, man, they travel overseas and get Baltimore across the pond. Of course, Baltimore was 10-7 last season. Lost to the Bengals in the wild card round. 16th overall in offense, 339 yards a game, 20 points a game. And defensive wise, 10th with 324, giving up 18 and a half points a game given up. And so I guess the biggest thing, J. Lou, it was L. Jack's a big contract. Finally got that worked out. And then also adding OBJ to that offense.
Yeah, I mean, they got him some weapons. You can tell he got the bag. He's got the weapons around him. I expect you to see a different offense with the new offensive coordinator there. Let's not forget, Lamar has been MVP, and he can throw it when need be. And that's just been the problem. Is you focus so much on his legs, he really hasn't had any receivers outside of Andrews as a tight end. So now that you've added some weapons on the outside for him, we know that defense is going to be tough. And you got to bring that. I mean, they have to bring the big boy pads over to London when they come. The one caveat about this game, and I brought it up the last show, I like to look at all these little scheduling quirks when the schedule comes out. Fun fact: the Titans I think they have the second best rest ratio in the league when it comes to schedules, which is something weird. But Vrabel thinks about things like that. A number of fans don't. So the Ravens, this is not only a away game for them in London, it's their third straight road game. Period. They go to Cleveland, they go to Pittsburgh, and then they go to Tennessee. That's 2 divisional games and a rival game, and the rival game is across the pond. They might come in beat up. Let's just be honest, because Cleveland, the AFC North is a physical conference. So I mean, we used to be in that one. That's why we have our physicality. But to go from the Browns, who should be better, to Pittsburgh, which is always a tough game, no matter what the records are, and then fly across to play the Titans. And oh, by the way, the Ravens didn't take the option of getting the bye week after it. They got a home game the following week. That can take its toll on them, especially making that trip in the flight. So I'm sure that's been pointed out, but you just got to go in because, again, any given Sunday, any given where in the world, you can be beat. But I like our chances with that from that standpoint, simply just looking at the schedule as it leads up to it, because that can make for some tired bodies, especially as we're rounded from September to October, and still the weather can be still hot when you're playing. So that could be some tired bodies and physical bodies. But we've just got to that's back-to-back running quarterbacks we have to deal with, and we saw Lamar put us on skates in the playoff games a couple years ago. So
but here's the thing I would say about this game that makes it interesting to me is that one thing we do know is that I think both Vrabel and Shane Bowen, they both have a good feel for Lamar as far as him running the ball.
Yes.
They know what to do and how to maintain it. The thing is that's going to be the wild card for Lamar is the fact that one of the things, defensively that Vrabel and Bowen are going to do, they're going to try to keep him in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
His dangerous throws generally come outside the pocket, so they're going to try to keep him in the pocket. So that's going to be the main thing they're going to try to do, and keep the rush coming up the middle and not allow him to have those running lanes where he can get free and make those off-schedule plays. I agree with you. It's going to be rough on them in the fact that they play two tough divisional games. That's going to be, especially, you got to remember, the Cleveland game is always a tough game for them. Because, the Cleveland fans will not allow the Browns not to play hard against the Baltimore Ravens, because they were once the Cleveland Browns. So that's just like us in Houston. It's just going to be one of those things. It's always going to be physical, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. Then on top of that, playing the Steelers, and Tomlin's going to have the Steeler defense ready to go for that one. But I will say having OBJ is going to help them out a lot. You just don't know how that new offense is going to be. I mean, that's another thing. They're going to be rounded into form around that time when they play us. But again, you're talking about having to play two physical games. Is going to be hard. And then having to go across the pond with that time difference and all that, it's going to be different for them. I mean, they might be okay, but I guarantee you there's going to be some tired legs in that game.
Oh, yes.
And again, let's not discount the other thing. That's going to be the third physical game.
Yes.
It's going to be the third physical game. So it's going to be hardcore as far as that's concerned. It's going to be rough. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's not easy for us either, playing Cincinnati and Indy and Cleveland and all that back to back. But still, I like our chances a little bit better. And the fact that Vrabel's going to try to go into the bye week with a win, coming back from London and everything, and letting players get rested up for that home stretch is going to be another long second half of the season for us. Right. So I just think it's going to be interesting to see how the team defensively, how we handle it, and then again, offensively, if our offense is running the form where we're passing the ball and not solely dependent upon the king for our offense. In other words, not allowing people to stack 9 in the box to try to stop us on every down. I think we might see a little bit better. I think, in all honesty, this could be a good win for us.
It's gonna be a good game. They added Nelson Aguilar, another receiver. They drafted Zay Flowers as their first pick in the draft, and so giving Lamar more weapons. Like you said, G. It's gonna be interesting to see how this offense looks with a new offensive coordinator. They also drafted Trenton Simpson, linebacker out of Clemson, another guy that's big, 6'2", 235, runs a 4.4. Baltimore, they have a great knack for drafting those fast linebackers that can play that edge. And Tavius Robinson, another edge player out of Ole Miss, 6'6", 257, runs a 4.6 and a 40. So he's a possible 4.3 defensive end type player. And so it's going to be very interesting, man. It's going to be another tough game. The time difference is going to be key as well, getting them on a routine schedule as they go across the water. And so, G-Wish, you got a question, man, out there in the chat, and you see he says, I know it's off topic from Will, but what's your take on the Titans not taking a wideout, man? You weren't here last week, so a lot of questions came up about some of those things. But what you think, man, about the Titans not really taking anybody outside of Dow in the 7th round.
I will say I thought it was unusual, but I think, and here's my whole thing about it. And again, I said this after the draft. I would not be surprised to see Dow being wide receiver number 2, especially with Phillips coming back to play the slot. I see Treylon Burks playing well, so I think they feel like they're pretty well strong in that regard. And I think what they did get in undrafted free agents, as far as receivers are concerned, I think it's going to be a big boost to them. So I'm not so concerned about that position because I think they did okay last year. They just couldn't stay healthy. And I think if Treylon Burks and both Kyle Phillips stay healthy, I think we're going to be fine at wideout. So I'm not really overly concerned about it. I just think Dow is going to be the X factor. And again, I think, this is just me, I think you see him as wide receiver number 2 on the outside, as opposed to seeing Nick Westbrook-Ikhine playing like he did last year.
Yeah, and I'll come to you, J. Lou, but I also think, so like you mentioned, G. Witt, undrafted free agents, Jacob Copeland, Maryland, Trayshawn Harrison, that's another guy out of I think Oregon State. I think there are some Kearis Jackson from Georgia. I think there's some guys there that can really make a difference. Of course they wasn't drafted, they weren't high rated names, but they have some good numbers, man. They can run, they can do some things that we hadn't had a lot of speed in the receiver room in a while. You guys know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
And I think also, J. Lou, we'll be looking at a lot of, as we mentioned last week, a week before that, 11 personnel, 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, especially with Josh Wiley showing his receivers. Even Trevin Wesco being a blocking tight end because you can see him flexed out there as well.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I think they're banking on Chig and Wiley to kind of mask the playmaking abilities at the wide receiver spot. I think the one thing that we want to see, and you're hoping that Copeland or one of the undrafted guys can be that, we still need that deep threat that can take the top off. Right. You've got to have that. So, but I 100% agree with you. Don't be shocked. You see Wiley wide out. You see Chig lined up every spot that you can play X, Y, and Z. And again, you heard Tim Kelly say that the difference is the last coordinator we had, him that should not be named, said we don't scheme players to get the ball and get them open. The new one said we scheme players to get the ball to our playmakers. So, I think if Burks has done everything, Burks had a tough rookie year.
Yeah, he did.
Injuries aside, this toxic fan base didn't want Burks on draft night only because of what the Titans front office did as far as getting rid of AJ to pick him up. So he came in with all that weight on his shoulders. He's done everything right. I mean, I like the fact that my man took a plane that was smaller than a taxi to get to OTA from Northwest Arkansas. And I've flown. I work for the company that owns Northwest Arkansas. I know how tough it is to fly and drive out of there. For him to get back to OTAs shows you the dedication he's put in this year. That I think we see a breakout year from Mr. Burks. And the one thing you already hear it out of camp. Him and Tannehill are getting the rhythm down, and that can be this. Think about how AJ and Tanny was. Tanny definitely missed AJ, so if he can get Burks to be somewhat close to that level, then watch out.
And that's the thing about it too. And I think the thing that people forget about Tanny and AJ was the fact that, remember, AJ was when he was drafted as a rookie, he played a lot with the second team.
Yep.
So, and Tannehill was running the second team office at that time. So they had a lot of time to get together. I think the same thing happens with Burks this year. And I think the other thing about it with Burks stayed in Nashville.
Yes.
The entire offseason, training and everything. And again, he said it best in his first presser. Just being able to breathe.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Makes me a lot faster.
Exactly.
So, him getting in shape, NFL shape, having a full offseason to get in NFL shape, to get his asthma under control, that's huge for him. Yeah. So, I think I think the receiver room is better than what people have given us credit for. And I agree with Dion. And we said this in the draft. People forget you got to have a good offensive line first.
No doubt.
Yes,
no doubt.
100%.
You got to have that first. So, I don't care how good your receivers are. If your quarterback is on his back, he can't throw it to him.
Yep.
So having a good offensive line is going to be key. And I think from what we're seeing so far, the OTAs, I think we're going to see some fruits out of that whole deal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you said it best. The quarterback cannot throw the ball when he's laying on the turf. So, hey man, y'all got to remind me to tell y'all a story about one of those little planes that I had in the counter with one time.
Oh, man.
You know how big I am, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, did the plane get off the ground, man? That's what I want to know.
This thing, thank the Lord, I got
like
back
I'm
on
telling you, I've flown into Northwest Arkansas for work, and unless you're on one of the private jets, you're praying the whole time you're flying.
Yeah.
These things, I'm like, it looked like one of them little putt planes going. So
I'm talking about the 2-man plane.
Yeah.
Me and that like this. Yeah, that's another story. So that the Ravens again, always a tough game. Harbaugh and Vrabel, you know, they got into a little issue a couple years ago when the Titans gathered up in the middle of the field before the game. The Ravens didn't like that, and of course, we know what happened. They came here and they took a dump on our field in the middle of the field, pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
basically.
Pretty much. And so yeah, you can expect that to be a physical, chippy game, just because this rival goes back, G Witt, like, you know, back to Eddie George and Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis, yeah.
So those hard knocking games they
That's
had.
why
Man.
I'm shocked, and it'll never come out. I'm curious which home game the Titans protected from going to London. Because of everything you just said, and I think of it from the fan base standpoint with your rival. I wonder if this was one of those where the NFL kind of, hey, you might want to protect the Ravens, but we'd rather put that on for the bigger brand of the shield. Because it just looking at our home games, I can't. It's shocking to see that this one is the one that went over to London, and when you can protect one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so let's keep moving, guys, because we got the bye week coming up, like we just talked about, and then we have another familiar, I'm gonna say team, the Tennessee Falcons, right?
Yes.
So the Atlanta Falcons, noon kickoff here at home on the 29th. The Falcons were 24th overall on the offensive side of the football, 318 yards a game, 21.5 points a game. Defense, 27th overall, 362 yards, giving up a game, almost 23 points a game. Big additions for this team. Of course, they got a new defensive coordinator. Kadeem Pease retires again, maybe for good this time. Ryan Nelson, he's over at the Saints, the defensive line coach. They had some pretty good pickups in free agency. Jesse Bates, safety for the Bengals. David Yamada, defensive tackle from the Saints. Tyler Hinkie, quarterback from Washington. Calais Campbell signs there too, right?
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of defensive side of additions. Mike Hughes, DB from Detroit. Bud Dupree, another Tennessee Titan. Goes there, and Jonnu Smith to give them that 2 tight end package. And so, G Witt, man, let's talk about these Falcons, because they get him a stud running back, arguably the best running back in the draft this year. Bijan Robinson out of Texas, 5'11", 215, a 4.46 guy. Won the Doak Walker Award for the best running back in the country last year, over almost 1,600 yards rushing, right? And then 19 receptions for 314. So very skilled back, G Witt, 3 down back.
Yeah.
And then Arthur Smith gets what he wants, right? He wants to run 12 personnel as well, because that's what he did with Tannehill. He's got Desmond Ridder, a young quarterback to cater to. And so he's got him some weapons down there, G Witt, man. It's going to be a tough game here at home.
Oh, without a doubt. And again, you know, we joke about them calling them the Tennessee Falcons and everything, but you're right. Arthur Smith has exactly what he wants. And probably what you're going to see under Arthur is a resurgence of Jonnu Smith as far as being a tight end is concerned. He's going to be more like that Delaney Walker mode that when he was originally drafted by us, he was Delaney Walker's replacement. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be that. And, of course, you got Pitts out there already. So, yeah, you're going to see that 12 personnel out of them without a doubt. Defensively, it's going to be interesting because chances are, I'm going to say this, chances are this is, and it's just one of those things that I've been noticing. Bud Dupree, teams come to us, they're hurt the whole time. They leave. The players come to us, they're hurt. They leave. All of a sudden, they get amazingly healthy. Prime example, A.J. Brown didn't miss a game last season. Played every game, played throughout the playoffs, didn't miss any time, didn't even get dinged up on the field where he's limping off or anything. So I'm expecting to see that out of Bud Dupree. It's going to be an interesting game in all honesty. Calais Campbell, I think this is his last hurrah, in all honesty. So I'm interested to see how he's going to play. But this one is going to be interesting. Arthur Smith is going to come here, one, to air it out, to throw the ball well. Defensively, we're going to be trying to stop him, because this is the beginning of that trick of where we're going to be playing these games back to back to back. And Vrabel is going to want to start out as hot as possible. And I think Vrabel probably has an undefeated record coming out of a bye week. I think he does a good job with that. So I think we win the game, but I just think it's going to be interesting to watch, to see how the team overall plays as far as this is concerned, because this is the start of it. So we're going to see what happens, but I think we can come out of this with a win.
J. Lou, man, they got some interesting pieces. If you look at their offensive side of the ball for a second, we mentioned Bijan Robinson. What happens to Cordell Patterson? He was the guy last season for the Falcons, catching a lot of their running a lot of, coming out of the backfield, running, catching the ball.
Their gadget guy.
The gadget guy. Does he go back to receiver? They got Drake London. They picked up Mac Hollins. If you remember the Raiders game, Mac Hollins was doing us in last year.
Yes.
They also picked up Scotty Miller from the Buccaneers. And so, J. Lou, man, it's going to be pretty interesting to see this offense once they get it together in training camp and see how it flows, right? We know play action, though, but
oh, yeah.
Ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the Falcons probably are they should be the sneaky pick to probably win that division when you look around it. It's going to be nice to see the chess match between Arthur and Vrabel, who can stop who, because it's really a carbon copy of teams going against each other. I think our defensive line is much better than that side of the ball. The back end safeties could be a wash. And I'm always going to say our running back is better just because the other guys are rookie. But it's going to be interesting to see what special that Arthur has that Vrabel hadn't seen, and vice versa, because they know each other so well and are carbon copies of one another. And again, I think that I think you didn't see Arthur go after a big quarterback. And Heineke, Heineke's a proven regular season winner. And I think he's won a playoff game in his career too. So he's a suitable starter for that division, given and with the right offensive coordinator. So again, I think he'll have Reader playing excellent out of there. But I think G would hit it right on. It's going to be a very interesting game because it's the Titans of the AFC versus the Titans of the NFC. Basically, even when you go from coaching staff down, and it's just about who has that wild card that the other one hasn't seen yet, to be able to get that play over. This is one where your real playmakers on both sides of the ball are just going to have to step up. Like I think this has a big Jeff and Danico game written all over it. Like I think you see like a game like this is one of those games where, again, because Arthur knows our team, we know him. So then who's going to go beat who? And I think this is where you see that front four on that D-line. I'm hoping by now that, you get Harold back in rounding the form. Again, I have no expectations for Landry this year simply because I've seen Bud a year after the ACL. I've seen Taylor a year after the ACL, the whole nine. So if we can get even a glimpse of Harold Landry, that's a win. But I think by now this is 8 weeks into the season. Yeah. So you're hoping that he's getting a little bit more in football shape and strength. You're hoping that the Weaver is starting to really get his groove, which he's put on some muscle this year, this summer as well. But I think this is a real game where I think he put in 13-17 is what I see. I was going to say this is one of those 17-20 score type games, and you hope that our defensive line just forces a turnover near the end.
Yeah, wheels are all over it. Go ahead.
And I agree with you, because the one thing I would say this is it's going to be a good. Hopefully, our defense plays well because Atlanta does score.
Yes,
let's just give them credit. They score. Atlanta's biggest problem over the past few years is they haven't been able to stop people from scoring.
They defense.
So you're hoping with our new offense that we are scoring more than just 15 points a game.
15 points a game.
We did under him, who should not be named. But the thing about it is, really, I agree with you. This is going to be a good test for our back end as far as the defense is concerned, because I know regardless of whether it's Ritter or Heineke, they're going to be throwing the ball.
Oh yeah,
and we're going to see how well our linebackers can cover, and also how well our DBs can cover in this game, because they do have some weapons. So I 13-17, yeah, that sounds about right. If it's a good defensive game, it may be in one of those 28-35 games. You just never know.
You're right about
Yes.
that. I can see it going that way too, G Wit. And so Dion always brings up good questions, man. So we talked about this some about the strength and conditioning, and for the past 2 years, Vrabel says it's not their problem. Then he also brings out the fact that some of the, at the end of the year presser, he brings up some interesting stuff that we've never heard him really say. He never really throws anybody under the bus. But you can get that feeling toward the end of this past season in the presser when he was saying, guys
repeat offenders.
Repeat offenders, not doing what they need to be doing when they're away from the facility. And so I think it probably goes a little hand in hand. Maybe the strength and conditioning folks need to look at some other options, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not an expert at that. But I do know what I see for the past 2 seasons. They led the NFL, as you mentioned, Dion, in injuries. And so we'll see, man. And the person that needed to be in OTAs the most, he was out. Christian Fulton, but we'll go ahead.
And they said Fulton was working out in Miami with some guys, the DBs and basketball, etc. So that's true. wonder if that's just something that, hey, because again, to what you just said about Vrabel saying what guys are doing away from the facility, you wonder if how many of them changed up their routines or trainers this year to get in that better conditioning shape. Because I've never played pro football. Ed, you played in college. Strength and conditioning can only do so much. And then you're on your own. Think about it. They could be on their own for what, eight weeks from after minicamp. So it's about what you do to be disciplined there. So I think that's a big part of it, to see what these guys do away from the field and how they come into camp. Because again, we not only did we lead the league in injuries, but we led them in soft tissue injuries.
But here's the thing too, and I think here's how I think the message was received. Like you said, Vrabel didn't necessarily call out specific players, but he's repeat offenders and soft tissue. You hear more about guys working out this offseason,
than
you ever have.
That's right. That's right.
And at least we know one player. We know one player watched our program, because Roger McCreary said he worked out with Kevin Byers.
Yes.
I mean, come on. And, you hear about Christian Fulton, and also you see that when he came back to OTAs, you see they kept him in the bubble. They didn't allow him to be outside. So they're waiting to see exactly what's going on. But, I think when you see Treylon Burks saying, I stayed here in Nashville because I want to make sure that I can deal with this weather and my breathing and everything. You see players talking about, I stayed here and worked out, and they did a lot of things privately. I think that's one thing we see how that message was received, and the fact that they let players go who were the repeat offenders. They're like, this has got to stop. So I think we may see a little bit of a difference as far as that injury front this season as opposed to what we saw last season. Even with Ryan Tannehill mentioning in the last presser, talking about players getting hurt and everything, I've been, how you always have players get hurt, but, we had players lose 90 players every season.
Yeah.
You want to get it to where you're only using 53. But we've been using 90 for the past 2 seasons.
90.
So let me get to look at the chat. I'm laughing over it says. So I think that person falls in the same category as number 33 for G Wit.
Yes.
That person should not be named. Yeah, he called out David Long and Fulton for sure. You're right about that. And that was frustrations, of course, with a 7-game losing streak. But to that point, he had some repeat offenders, right?
Yeah.
You have repeat offenders, guys that you are counting on, starters, right, that are not available. And that's one of the things that Vrabel been preaching since he's been here. You have to be available.
Yeah.
You have to be available.
Yeah. The best ability is availability.
That's right. That's right. And so after we get out of that battle with the Falcons, we got our first primetime Thursday night game at Pittsburgh. Always a tough football game. You got Pitts coming off his rookie season at quarterback. And offensively, they were 23rd in the league, 322 yards of offense, but they couldn't score G Wit 18 points a game. Defensively wise, you got sacks galore, 330 yards of offense, 13th ranked overall, 20 points a game. They picked up Patrick Peterson, which is in the end part of his career. He's there to mentor those younger DBs.
Yeah.
Kanu Neal, safety from Tampa Bay. Marcus Golden, who can rush the passer as well. 7 draft picks. They go O-line first. J. Lou, man. Broderick Jones. Excuse me. Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia, with a big athletic tackle, 4'9" and a 40, long arms. Steelers, man. And Joey Porter Jr., right? Another DB.
So.
That was the pick.
That was the pick, and you forgot about that last name over there that terrorized us as a Texan, T.J. Watt. We just can't get away from that.
I was just gonna breeze over him because we already know.
I mean, God, that last name just terrorizes us. But man, it's a short week. It will be a physical game. We finish so that we've made it through 8 or 9 games, and we're finished with the AFC North. Pittsburgh finishes off the AFC North. This is going to be a tough one. And this whole second quarter that we got, all of them are tough, but I think this is a tougher one. Pittsburgh, the last time we played them a couple years ago was close, and then they took it out at the end. Tomlin he's my favorite coach in the league, hands down. I mean, he's just a good, consistent coach. You know, you're gonna get a hard-nosed defense out of that team. He had Pitts looking good. He had
Pickett. I'm sorry, I mispronounced.
Yeah. He had Pickett looking good at the end of the year. And so I think they still bring that along. I think they got rid of the offensive coordinator. I know it was so you got a new offensive coordinator up there because they were in the same boat we were. They had Todd Jr. up that way when it came to scoring. But you definitely, I mean, they got running back, it's hard-nosed game, and it's Pittsburgh. So those terrible towels will be waving. It's prime time, a Thursday night game. Put your big boy pads on. This is one that has wild card implications in AFC. Yeah, because I just said we're going to be finished. We will have more AFC North games played at this time than we have AFC South. Mm-hmm. And I'm be honest, we've got to go 2-2, really 3-1 in the AFC North if we want to sniff wild card. I'm not even talking about division yet. I'm just talking about playoffs and wild card because I think that the AFC North has the potential to put 2 teams, if not 3, just like the West.
Put 2 last year.
Last year. So I mean, it's that division. You want to have some tie-breaking opportunities, and we play the whole division. But this is going to be one that from a short week is going to be a very tough game.
Yeah, and G Will, let me. I just want to some of these weapons they got, man. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. They picked up Allen Robinson in free agency, and so Pittsburgh hard nosed, the coach is hard nosed, man. And then of course you got Mika Fitzpatrick, one of the best safeties in the league back there to go with Jordan Porter Jr. And I mean it's again T.J. Watt, Cameron Hayward. Do I need to keep going? So,
no,
go ahead, G. Will.
No, because what I was going to say is really when you look back over the Steelers, especially over the past couple of seasons, their biggest problem has been twofold. Really, they really have not been able to run the ball consistently, and they really have not been able to stop the run consistently. They pass rush like crazy. Don't get me wrong.
Yes,
and they play a tough defense, but the thing that surprised me more than anything else over the past couple of years is them not being able to stop the run. So that's going to be a key factor, I think, in this game, whether or not that defense is able to stop the run or not. Also, and keep us out of those obvious passing situations, because that's where you limit the effect of somebody like a T.J. Watt, who's gonna come at you, and without new offensive line and not knowing who's going to be playing left tackle, or it's going to be interesting to see how that works as far as that dynamic is concerned. They're going to load up plenty of offensive weapons. Their offensive line has not been the best over the past few years, so we're going to see how our defense holds up against that, especially with the new offensive weapons they got on the outside. So it's going to be a tough game. It's a Thursday night game, and truthfully, I'm just going to be straight up and honest. I don't see the win coming out of this one, in all honesty. I think it's going to be one of those where question is going to be how well we play more than whether or not we win the game or not. And that's why I'm going to be looking at it. How well do we play? Do we come out of it healthy? Because that's going to be the key, because this is when we're going to start getting into the meat of our division schedule, playing against Jacksonville. So to me, how healthy do we come out of this game? If we win, that's a plus. But the question is going to be how healthy we come out of it, because it's going to be a tough game. Luckily, it's in the first part of November, so it won't be as cold.
Yeah.
Right.
But and the last time we played them well. We just turned the ball over.
Too many times.
Too many times. Too many.
And that's going to be the whole key in this one. Can we maintain ball control? Can we keep the ball and not turn the ball over? It's going to be a tough game. I'm just going to be honest. We don't know how the offense is going to be, so I don't know whether we're going to be able to do anything against them or not.
Shout out to K-Lou, man. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Yeah, and it wasn't that when we played them last time in Pittsburgh, didn't Tannehill miss A.J. Brown on a deep throw, or it was either him or Westbrook Keeney? I can't remember, but he needed just another second, and he kind of overthrew because he got hit. Yeah, so yeah. To both of your points, I agree, man. A tough football game. I can't fail to mention down there Washington, tight end of Georgia, that got him as well. So another big guy, 6'7", 264, to go along with that offense, and Kenny Pickett giving him some more weapons for his disposal. Tough game, man. Pittsburgh, another game that's got a little rivalry taste to it. Some history there. Going back and forth. I mean, going back to even when we had G. Witt's favorite coach, the Pretty, coaching the Titans, and all those slugfest games that used to happen. And back then, AFC North, at the Titans were the Houston Oilers Titans as they came here. And so second quarter of the schedule, it's gonna be tough. You got to travel overseas, and you come back and go to a bye week, but then you got some familiarity with the Falcons, right? And then the Steelers. I'm like you, J. Lou, man. They're going to have to at least go 2-2 in this AFC North. You got Cleveland now. You potentially getting DeAndre Hopkins reunited with. You got a whole offseason with Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
And their defense is coming back, and they were top 15 last season. So you could be looking at three teams there. You could only be seeing one team out of AFC South going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, just like last year, division
like last year.
Right. All these games are going to be very, very tough. As far as the game goes. So Kanye, good. Hey man, appreciate you joining us tonight. He said, who we got tonight, Miami or Denver? I saw last week that Miami's too little.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like Jimmy Butler, but the joke is Miami's too small.
Unless they figure out a way to reduce that size, which it's gonna be pretty tough. They got to play better. I think you go see them press more as far as picking up the
they down by 14 already. We're like halfway through the second quarter.
Let's just be honest about it. The problem you're going to have is the fact that Denver is a complete team.
Yes.
They're a complete team.
Yeah.
And Miami, for all the good play they've had in this playoff run, everything they've done is dependent upon Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for one guy to beat a team.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing too. And here we are talking about basketball. Miami, it just shows you that if you hitting shots, you can beat anybody.
You can beat anybody.
So they were hitting shots. What happens? Go back to G Witt. What happens when you're not hitting those shots and you only got your dog on the team that usually creates a lot of shots for everybody else? Now you're not hitting those shots, and so guess what? It's hard to win.
And let's be honest, Denver's playing phenomenal basketball. They're playing complete basketball. Yeah. And the Joker is the X Factor, man. He's killing everybody.
He's got the ugliest game I've ever seen.
Ever.
He's so good.
And he's killing everybody with it. In all honesty, to be truthful, he reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember this, Mark Eaton that used to play for the Utah Jazz.
I remember Mark Eaton.
Yeah.
Ugly
but he's a better offensive player than Mark Eaton never was.
Yeah. Right.
And the thing that kills you about the Joker is not so much his scoring, it's his passing. His passing, and everybody knows it, and you can't do anything to stop it. You're so busy worried about trying to stop the Joker from scoring. He's passing the ball to Jamal Murray, and it's layup city. Mm-hmm. So I just don't see. The thing I think about this series is that you just don't want to see Miami get swept.
Yeah,
you want to see them make it competitive.
But
I'm just that's what I'm saying. The only thing is that you don't want to see Miami get swept. They probably are going to get swept.
Man. And so, as we look at wrapping up this one, that third quarter, guys, of the schedule it doesn't. So you got to go to Tampa Bay. You got to go to Florida twice. You got Tampa Bay, you got the Jags, and then you got the Panthers. You got, a quarterback situation at the Buccaneers. You got Baker Mayfield. You know what you get out of the Jaguars, right? Another rivalry game. Jaguars say, now this is our division. We own the division now, right? And so now they're playing with confidence now, right?
Yes.
Normally we would go down there, they'd be like, oh,
and
man,
smack
they
them.
smack them in the mouth. Not this time. And so then you got the Panthers after that.
They got the best quarterback in the division.
They do.
And the Colts. Yeah. So we'll see. That defense got to be on point, man. A defense that only gave up 76 yards rushing last season. I mean, I can see that even if it's possible for it to be better, I can see it being better this year than it was last year. The health of the secondary is going to be the concern for me in all these games.
Yeah.
Yes, the health of the secondary and the rush up front. Because I mean, we were worse against the pass almost, but a lot of that is skewed because they couldn't run the ball. So we saw a lot of pass, and we 50-60 attempts a game, and it has been out on the field and couldn't score. I'm curious to see, because they said he's been working on it. Tierra Tart's probably the best run stopping nose tackle in the league, one of the best. Let's see what he's added, because he's added some pass rushing moves. That's my guy.
That's your dude.
That's my guy. My guy has added. They said he's added some pass rushing skills this time. So if we can get the rush up the middle and just contain on the outside, we can be very deadly with just being able to rush with 4 and dropping 7 back. And we talked about on the last show, G, we really don't have a green mile per se this year when you look at the quarterbacks. But we've got a lot of teams that got young weapons on the outside that are still going to test the DBs. I think about that quarter we just wrapped up. That's some depth at wide receivers on all them teams that we just named for that second quarter. So I think we can come out of that quarter 3-1. You'll be sitting real pretty if you can come out of it. And the one loss I'd have would be with G. I think the Pittsburgh would be the one where we just run out of. It's a short week. I think you're still running out. You're still recovering from London and Dubai and Atlanta. I think that short week, I think that's the one L we can take. But again, if we take that one, then that means we had to go 3-0 or 2-1 on the previous AFC North games. Because again, I just feel when you start looking at the AFC matchups and playoff positioning, you've got to stack them wins up. And the unique thing about the Titans schedule, as G-Whip pointed out, I think we have 5. We went through 9 games now, and only 1 was a division game. So we only got 8 more left. 5 of them are going to be division games, so you can stack them up there and hope you can win the division. So,
right. Well, it's gonna be tough. Like I said, I wasn't with you guys when you talked about the schedule, the first quarter and everything. But it's just weird right now with this schedule that we got, because we're playing all the young quarterbacks. We got all the young guns in this one, so yes. It's going to be interesting to see what we can do defensively against all that young talent. It's going to really be interesting.
And one of them, Vrabel's 0-3 against. So
yes.
Oh, you talking about Burrows?
Yes,
Joe
Cool. Yeah, it always comes down to a couple of things. With either we can't stop him, or their defense knocks somebody from our team out.
Yeah, they stop us.
So right. It's going to that game is really going to be interesting this year, I think. Especially since we're playing it here again. It's just going to be one of those games. It's just Joe Burrow's got our number.
Yeah, he does.
Joe Burrow's got our number, and we'll have to wait and see if it's almost like we're playing against Andrew Luck again. We never could beat him.
I know man.
And this is what's got to tick you off about Joe Burrow having our number. He's got punched in the mouth the last 2 games.
Yeah,
and so then took it.
I know it. Took it and didn't win a game. They walked off like, see ya.
And again, I mean, and you saw your boy. You saw your boy Trevor Lawrence do the same thing.
Yep.
Right. So it's a matter to see how this one. I say this. It's going to be a matter of seeing how well the offense plays, because that's been always one of the downfalls in both games. Cincinnati and Jacksonville last season was that the offense stunk it up. Defensively we always play pretty good against them, but offensively we can't do anything against those defense. And like I said, Cincinnati, I'm just gonna be real about it. They punked us the last few games we played them.
So we talked about that last week, 2 weeks ago.
They punked us. So the bottom line is, can this offense stand up against that defense? That's gonna be the bottom line.
Yeah, it starts at the offensive line, man.
Yeah, it starts with the offensive line. It starts with the offensive line, and can the receivers take the punishment? You know, because they've knocked out receivers every game.
Now, so they lost a couple of key members of that secondary. You know, we talked about Bates going to Atlanta, and so there might be some potential. I know they drafted the kid out of Michigan who can run a 4.2, smaller DB, but that's fine. But yeah, it's again, you almost look at this game as this is the team, one of the teams besides Kansas City that we have to beat in the AFC if we gonna get to the Super Bowl, right? Because they've been there the last couple of years, them in Kansas City at the end, and so it's that type of game, and for it to be that early in the season, it's a good litmus test about what this offensive line is going to do, what this offense is going to look like, right?
Yeah,
and so we'll see.
It'll be the fourth game, so we'll see how it goes and everything. But
Deion said Joe Burrows, aka he should also not be named.
Hey,
but thank y'all for joining us tonight.
But just looking at it, really in this whole game plan, the first 8 games, I think we should come out of there 6-2.
I like that. I think Jay Lee, you said 2-2 last a couple weeks ago, as far as those first 4 games.
Yeah, I said it. I said if we can get out of those first 2-2, I think you set yourself up real good. Because again, I say 3-1. I could see 4-0 out of this second quarter we just got through, and that'll give you 6-2. From what G Witt just said. So either way you slice it, but again, it's the first month of the game that we treat like preseason. I think that's where we got to stack the wins. And when you have a young team that reset, just think about how we reset the defense a couple years ago. It took them a minute to gel. You know it's going to take this offense the first month and a half or so to really get going. I think the one thing you like about we said it again. You've seen every offensive player in town for OTAs because you got a new offensive coordinator. They've changed the language. Like they've said, we might see the same play. It might just be called differently, which again goes back to Tannehill saying it's not allowing them to be faster. Because think about how many times we just saw them in the huddle calling book worth of plays just to run the ball left. So if you change it up the philosophy that way, I'm curious to really see what we do. And again, I just think I know what we saw Tim Kelly do last night, and I'll give G Witt his credit. He never was on the Todd train when we hired Todd because he was just like, look at what he did at Oakland for the Raiders. But the last time we got to see Tim Kelly, he had Davis Mills looking like the offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Darius says we beat Baltimore because they had to play Pittsburgh before us, and then so they'll be beat. I agree with you, man.
Yeah,
I agree with you, and these guys do as well. And so, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments, man. We got some new software we got running here, man. So it looked like everything worked out tonight. And so glad at that.
Yeah, for me dropping out a couple of times.
Yeah, we'll work on that, G Witt, see what's going on.
Yeah, I got to figure that one out.
Yeah, Carl, we started 7-2 last year, right, man? 7-2. Think about that, fellas. 7-2 with that offensive line last season. Now, I know everybody will say, well, they didn't play anybody to win a schedule. I don't care. It's the NFL. You take the wins. Right?
Yeah, that's still 7 games.
That's still 7 games.
7-2, but then if you remember, we went 7-2 and the wheels fell off.
Completely.
The wheels fell off after we played Green Bay.
Yes.
After we played Green Bay, after the arrest.
Yep.
And then what happens? Cincinnati comes in here, punches in the mouth, and then it was just
he shall not be named.
Yeah.
It was over from that. And us running the ball to the left was the opposite. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So, again, thank y'all for joining us, man, tonight, getting your comments, your questions in for another live episode of Halftime Adjustment. We're actually streaming live on YouTube and Facebook tonight, so appreciate all those that came in and commented. And we'll say this. Dang, G Witt, man, they giving you the blues tonight, man.
Well, that's okay.
They just missed you, man, on last show.
But always remember this. Just answer this one. Was I wrong?
No, you hadn't been.
Dion, look at this. Compatible with any software, man. You just not compatible with any software, man.
No, not these days. It's not working for some reason. I don't know why. It's always something with me.
Hey, man, we appreciate the love, guys, for real. Hey, join us next time, man. We'll be breaking down that third quarter schedule. and Taylor Stokes. What's going on, Taylor? Man, we didn't even see you on, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Especially since we've been talking about wide receivers this whole time. Right. So what's up with that?
Right. We'll give out the information on the next show. But yeah, check that out and stay tuned, man. Stay with us. We rocking it. We in the season 2. It's 2023 Titans, man, and got a lot to coming up. Going to see what's going on, and look, we missed you last week, though. Told you when they missed you, man. They missed you, so they just want to give you a hard time. Again, man, thank y'all, man, the comments, the questions, all the support of the show, the love. Join us next time as we'll be back live with another episode of Halftime Adjustments. We out here, man. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.